Dear brothers and sisters, a very good evening and a very warm and heartful welcome back to day 2 of our program on heartfulness communication and on another key concept of speaking with love. Today, we are into the 8th talk in our series of talks, and it is also the 51st day of our 90-day challenge to practice like never before. Yesterday, we covered the process of listening with love, a life-changing skill. Most of us are very good at giving advice, but are not at all good at simply listening. Listening with empathy in our hearts is easy to say, but hard to practice. This indeed is the challenge which we will resolve to undertake from now on. I'm Yogesh, your host for today. A very warm and loving welcome back to Sisters Celeste, Priya, Tejal, and Kanchan to the second day of the Heartful Communication Program on Speaking with Love. We are truly delighted and grateful for all your continued presence with us today. We are anxiously waiting for you to continue with another profound and eye-opening session. It gives us great pleasure once again to introduce Sister Liz. For the benefit of those who are joining us today for the first time, here is her brief biodata. Sister Liz commenced her journey with Archmark in 1986 and has been a heartfulness trainer since 1992. She holds an international certification as a trainer in the process called Nonviolent Communication, NVC, an approach developed by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. NVC, a heart-centered approach, has a deep affinity with heartfulness, both based on love. At the end of 2018, at Daji's request, she has been sharing NVC with the heartfulness community, starting with functionaries and preceptors. Currently, Sister Liz heads the Global Heartful Communication Program, which is now shared by teams of trained facilitators in Europe, the Middle East, Russian-speaking countries, APAC, North America, and India. Today, Sister Liz and her team are going to take us on another delightful, enriching, and enlightening journey to assimilate another key concept, speaking with love, in our daily life. Over to you, Sister.
Thank you, Yogesh.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Lovely to see you all again. Well, let's hope it is going to be delightful and enlightening and not.
It will be.
No guarantees. Okay. I would love to find out a little bit how everyone's got on since yesterday. Just briefly, remember that I asked you to start looking for needs, listening at this deep level to see if you could feel into what might be the needs behind what people are saying or what they're doing. I would love to just hear just a few comments from anybody who might have been working with this through the morning, through the day today. Any insights that you've got, any experiences, just very briefly. I'd love to know whether you're immediately trying to implement what we're offering you. So you're welcome, one or two people, to unmute yourself, put your hand up and speak, or you can write in the chat box. Okay, so I see that the word awareness is coming up, and that's what I'm really happy to hear. The awareness isn't, if you think about it, everybody, you can't change anything that you're not aware of, can you? So the first step towards any kind of change is going to start with starting to notice, be aware of something you weren't aware of before. So I'm really enjoying that the very first words that came in here are awareness, watching out for needs, trying to implement with your children. Hooray, Abhinav. Yeah. And Olga saying to stop and connect with your own heart and feel what you might be needing, what values are alive in you in this moment. Being more aware of needs, yeah. And unnecessary advice, noticing that giving advice is often not necessary. I love that insight, yes. So Rajesh, could not differentiate between needs and my own assumptions. Give me one example, can you, Brother Rajesh?
So if I have to really ask, assess the needs or understand the needs of a person who is normally having a conversation, how do I know that it's actually their needs that I'm reading into, underlying unmet needs?
I see what you're saying.
It's my own assumption about them.
Okay, great. I love this question. Everyone, so it's like you're sensing into what might be important to this person, and you're wondering if you're just assuming something with your guess, and it may not be accurate. Okay, what's a pretty reliable way? What's a pretty reliable way of finding out?
Asking them?
Yes. Yes. So the classic, if you like, the classic heartful communication empathic response is, if you know whatever somebody's saying, that you say, I'm wondering then, are you feeling da 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 da? Because it's important to you to have that feeling, need. Do you see what I'm saying? So we could do this immediately, if you like, just with one sentence. So what were you trying to feel into from somebody? Let's see if we can catch the need.
So the person felt an unmet need for respect.
Okay.
Right. So I just wanted to see, but it did not come out in that terms.
No, it wouldn't. That's what we were saying yesterday, isn't it, Rajesh? That it won't come out like that. They won't say, I need respect. They won't be saying that. You know, they'll be saying something like, nobody's paying any attention to me. And then we feel into that, and then we can offer back if we verbalize what we sense. So it might sound something like, you know, so are you feeling a bit uncomfortable or a bit kind of upset because you'd really like a bit more respect, people to take account of what you're doing and saying? But it's always asked as a question. Do you see? Does everyone get that? If you make it as a statement, that is an assumption.
All right. Thank you.
Right? You feel the difference between checking out in question form, I'm wondering if, and letting your voice rise, you don't know. Because you're spot on, Rajesh. The other person is the authority, if you like, on their feelings and needs. Our sensing into someone else's world shows our interest, our concern from them, you know, our wanting to be in connection, to have mutual understanding. And the verbal empathizing is extraordinarily satisfying for people to realize they're being heard. It's so different from saying, I understand. You know, how often have somebody said to you, yep, I understand exactly what you mean. And inside you think, no, you don't. Right? So we suggest in Heartful Communication that we don't use this phrase anymore of, I understand what you're saying. It's, you know, we demonstrate that we understand by tentatively guessing into what matters to somebody. Does that clarify your question, Rajesh?
Yes, kind of. I have to practice it a little bit more.
Yes, practice is the thing. Anyway, thank you very much for your question. Okay, great. So I'm happy that people are becoming more sensitive and more aware that people have needs in every moment and that you also have them, and that we can use the same process of going into ourselves to get clearer on what it is that matters to us in this moment. And in this session, that's one of the things that we're hoping will emerge, is that, you know, what matters to you will be able to come out in the way that you also express yourselves. The focus for our session is going to be Lalaji's principles of conversation. We have many, many approaches and tools that we offer in the full program of how you can speak with more love. And we're just choosing this because it's the foundation, one of the foundations of Heartful communication, as you know, and something which is very, very dear to the heart of Daji. As I'm sure you've realized, he has put enormous emphasis on Lalaji's teachings, and particularly on these principles of conversation. So we'll be looking at this, and we'll have hopefully a little bit of time for some questions, Q&A a little bit later on. We'll see how we get on. Okay, so have you all read Lalaji's principles of conversation? I can see some nods. I'm happy. I'm happy to see some nodding. I'm hoping everybody's internally nodding. If not, good. Great. And what we asked you to do, I think, was to just note down things that for you were most important, which I'm going to come to in a moment. But just before we start working in depth with Lalaji's principles, I just want us to look at what might get in the way of us being able to really use it and to be able to speak in this way. It's not our normal habitual way. Would you agree? But when you first read Lalaji, you think, oh, well, that's not the way that I speak at all. So it can be quite a profound challenge, can't it? To see how might I be able to implement this so that I really am expressing in tune with the current of reality. So what is it that kind of gets in our way? Would anyone like to put in the chat box anything which you're aware of that means that it can be quite just difficult and challenging, a bit of a struggle to do this? Anything at all? Any thoughts you've got about that? Great, look at that, our old speaking patterns. There we go. Yeah, having expectations, lukewarm efforts, Hari, yes. Like not really giving it our best efforts, yes. Our own characters, samskaras, yep, you bet, for sure. Super, okay, and I'm going to go with this first one from Sister Pooja there. Our old speaking patterns. This is going to be a different way of expressing, isn't it? A different way of speaking. So what we're going to offer you now is just very briefly a slide which shows some of these patterns which we have adopted through our education, our social conditioning. Remember, we were talking about this yesterday, that our natural way of being, which is what Lalaji is trying to return us to, has been educated out of us, you might say. And now habitually, and notice I'm saying habitually, not that it's natural. Sometimes people say, oh, well, naturally, I would say da 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 da. I'm suggesting that it's not natural, that these, what we're looking at now, they're habitual. We've learned them. Not all cultures speak in these ways, as you might realize. So when we're talking about judgments, can anyone say, let's see if I can see the chat at the same time. Here we go. Can anyone say what you think we mean by that? Or write an example or speak an example. What would be an example of a judgment? Anybody? let's just see a few examples. Judgmental language, this disconnecting language that alienates us from our true nature. So, any examples of judgment? What would be a judgment? Get those fingers going here. On your, yeah, okay. You always say that. There we go. The word always. That's the judgment of, yeah, as if they never do anything else. He or she is so something. Yes. So it might be he or she is so lazy, so selfish, so clever, so beautiful. Remember, it's not only negatives, that it's positives as well, as it were. You know, these are all judgments. And they, yeah, having perceptions of the other person, and out they come in our judgments. Okay, Harry Hart, I've come across it before. Yeah. Okay, so if we make a judgment about a person or the behavior, you know, the ones which really trigger distress are things like, how could you be so stupid, right? Or, you know, I just wish you'd be more responsible. You're so irresponsible. But remember the ones like, you know, she's the best artist in the class. Why is that sort of comment also alienating? She's the best footballer in the school, or most efficient manager we've ever had. Comparison. There we go. Do you see that it sets up this comparison? It's so much part of our language. But what about everybody else? You know, when you say you're the best something, then everybody else in the group thinks, oh, well, I'm no good then. So the comparison might feel kind of, you know, might boost the ego of the person hearing that they're the best. But let's remember, it's another example of split that brings us away from this sense of unity. There's Anne's contribution. You're so wonderful. I can always depend on you. Wow, I hope nobody ever says that to me. Because there'll be times when I'll do something and I won't be dependable. Do you see? It traps you. When we make comments like that, we're trapped in them, instead of allowing our humanity. Okay, great. Now, blame or accusations. That's pretty easy, isn't it? So Bharati says a better way to compliment than a comparison. Well, if you were going to do the full course, we could show you this, how we express appreciation. So, you know, rather than using praise, is we use observations, feelings, and needs. We express those. So you might say, you know, when I remember you coming with that soup when I was ill, we call that an observation. I feel really happy and grateful feeling. Because, you know, I feel so supported. It meets my need for support and care. That would be a translation of, you're so wonderful, you're always so kind. However, we don't have time to, unfortunately, to teach you this in depth. So, but we have alternatives within Heartful Communication for all these phrases. So blame, that's pretty common, isn't it? Yes. We missed the bus because of you being so disorganized. There's the blame, implying fault. Labels. You want to give me an example of what a label would sound like? When we label a whole group of people. You want to give an example of a label? Clubbing everybody together. Okay, always a latecomer. There's the label, the latecomer. Do you see? It's like giving the label to somebody. He's always a latecomer. You're never on time. That's the judgment. Listen to things like this for the moment. You won't like this one, everybody. Singaporeans are so much more disciplined than Malaysians. Two labels right there. Do you see? I've clubbed a whole lot of people together and then judged them. Indians, there we go, good Bharati. Indians eat such spicy food. Stay away from cheese. Now we're getting into it. Yes, the anti-vaxxers, you know, we should be banning the anti-vaxxers. You're such a hippie. There we go. You see, you can't trust the police or women drivers. These is what we mean by labels. Oh, they're very, very damaging to the uniqueness, aren't they, of a human being? That we push everybody into one lump together, one group, and then we make a judgment about that group as if we're not all individuals within it. And yes, I do know that Singaporeans are very obedient. I was there and I was terrified. All the time that I spent in Singapore, I was terrified that I was going to break one or other of the rules. Okay, so when we're talking about demands, listen to this. I need you to get this done tonight. Now that's not a need. That word is in there, need. But we're saying, I need you to get this done tonight. Do you see, it's not a need, it's a demand. So when we are saying things like, I need you to, please be aware, everybody, those are not needs. Those are demands. The need stands alone. It doesn't have a person doing anything in it. So the need might be efficiency. You see, and then we make a demand. So the problem with demands is what Master says, that we mustn't insist on things. Let's not have the energy of insistence. Okay, what would a threat sound like? That's pretty easy as well, isn't it? I think we all know what threats sound like. Could we put one or two into the chat box? And they usually begin with one particular word, don't they? What does threats sound like? Right, there we go. There's the if. If you don't do this by the end of the month, you're out of the job. Yeah. Shut up or else. If you do, yes, there are forms of blackmail. If you do this, then, okay, we all know what threats sound like. Thank you. Now, shoulds, have tos, and musts, can'ts, and excuses. These are all things that we say are indicators that we're not taking responsibility for our choices. We're not taking responsibility for our needs, you might say. Now, these are much more sneaky, these ones. You see, when you say you should, you have to, you must, can you feel the energy of those words? You should not drink so much coffee. You should do your cleaning before dinner. Now, they may be good advices, and in their essence, all shoulds are about making life more enriching. But with the energy of the word, should, have to, must, this isn't the energy of the heart, is it? This is the energy of the head. This is the rule. This is the demand energy, you could say. So again, what we want you to do is just to become aware that when we're using them, for example, and I like to use this example, when I was working in the Omega school, which I was doing for 10 years in Chennai, and I was teaching NVC there, the students who were going to be coming to my evening classes sometimes would say, "Ma'am, I can't come to your class this evening. I have to go to football." And I'd say, "Oh, Is that because the football teacher is holding a gun to your head? Do you see that they are putting the responsibility out of themselves? They're not seeing themselves as choice makers. So what we want you to do is to take responsibility for your choices based on your needs. So the students very quickly, they learned to say, ma'am, I'm choosing to go to football practice tonight because it's important for me to be part of this team. We've got a match on Saturday. I'm sorry, I won't be coming. Now, I respected them in saying that. I was sad they weren't coming, but they were taking responsibility. They were making a choice. Is this making sense to everybody? That, you know, that the more that you take responsibility for your actions, your words, that these are emerging from needs or values, things that matter to you in this moment, and you make a choice. Anytime you say, I can't, it's usually not true, is it? Usually not true. I can't come to that meeting. You could, and you're choosing something different. That's okay. There's a different need that matters to you more in that moment. So that's just a brief look. Thank you for the slide. That's just a little brief look, I hope, everybody. Was it a bit alarming to see all that and think, oh dear, that was pretty familiar? Because sometimes when we offer that slide, people think, oh my goodness, what's left if I don't do any of those, you know? So just to reassure you that we have very, very reliable alternative processes that we teach in the Heartful Communication Program, where we translate all of those into a form of language which has the intention to connect, not to correct, not to judge, not to blame. And very briefly, I'm just going to show it to you in the hope that it might be an interest to you to find out more, but we can't possibly teach it to you in these short sessions. But we have 4 tools of connection that come from nonviolent communication. The first one is we use the language of observation, which is a neutral description of something that has happened, of an event. Can you press the next button, whoever's doing slides? There we go. To complete the sentence. So instead of making like a judgment about something, you know, like you're so lazy, we'd say, when I see you lying on the sofa while I'm making dinner, let's say that was the event, do you see? And we try to keep our tone very, very neutral. We try to describe something without any evaluation, without any interpretation, just this is what has happened, in such a way that the other person you're speaking to could agree with your description. Yes, I am lying on the sofa and you are making dinner. Do you see? It's like a video camera. What a video camera can see or hear without any of our interpretation. So we use observation language. We express our feelings. Our feelings are linked to our need. Remember, your feelings come from your needs. That's where they come from. Positive feelings coming from needs that are fulfilled. I feel really happy because now I've got some support. Feeling, need. We express our needs, not as demands, but as energies, values that are alive in us. And we make requests, not demands. And requests are very positive, doable by the other person. They're negotiable. That means that when you make a request, everybody, wait for it, you have to be willing to hear the word no. If you're not willing to hear no, not a request, it's a demand. So very specific, we make very specific requests. So I just wanted to pop that up for you, just so that you know, even though we can't teach it to you, because it takes a long time to get, that there are these processes. And I suggest that you look at some of the videos on YouTube where Marshall Rosenberg is teaching nonviolent communication, and or please get his book, Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. All these processes are described in there. So Kalarani, yes, can we lose the slide? You have your hand up.
Yes, wanted to share this, that I read Dr. Marshall's non-violence communication.
Yeah.
And that's where he did give an example of religious split and or tribal split, where he had to go and talk to these tribes. So
yes,
yeah, he went there, then he asked them what is the needs, what, and so when they talked, they said that, oh, that person tried to murder my son, sort of threat way. So then, so the way Dr. Marshall answered was that, so you mean your need is safety? So when then they realized, yes, safety, yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell, safety. So when he asked the other part of the tribe, when they have the split in both, so the other part of partner also was first was said, no, why did he kill my son? So when he said that, no, because person safety, if it was safety in the first place, it was said, then all these misunderstandings would not have happened. So the way we say it means a lot. The way we say it in such a way that we can solve this non-violence communication in a proper way, better way.
Yes, thank you. I have to say I was really struggling to hear you because the connection was quite broken. What I picked up from that is you were saying from the example in the book that two tribes found out that they had the same needs. And that if they had discovered that, they all wanted to be safe, to have security, then the whole battle, as it were, the conflict may not have happened. And also the way people, I think you're also saying the way that people express themselves, how they use these words can be inflammatory or can be soothing and calm. Did I pick up your 2 points?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So do we all agree, everybody, that words have power? Listen to this. Listen, just listen to the energy of this. Stupid. Now feel the energy of this. Calm. Even just those 2 words, could you feel the completely different energy? So what we want to become aware of is that everything that we are expressing, whether it is verbal, whether it's our expressions, our mannerisms, our way of being, our presence, everything communicates. Everything communicates. So what we want to try to do, isn't it, is to find a way, and this is where Lalaji's advice comes in, to really find a way that enables us to speak in tune with the current of reality, to say what his words were. I'd love to know what aspects of Lalaji's principles of conversation appealed to any of you particularly. What have been some of the most revealing things that you discovered when you read the principles of conversation? Okay, lovely. Look at this. Speak in a way that you don't hurt, that you don't trigger hurt in anybody. Isn't that one of the most powerful messages? To be able to speak in such a way that it doesn't hurt anybody's heart. Yes. What for other people were most important? To retain a balanced condition of mind. Yes. There should be no weight in your speech. When I first read this, I put my highlighter over that phrase. No weight in your speech. In other words, it doesn't leave a heaviness in your heart or the heart of another. No impression. And Daji talks about, can we have conversations that leave no impressions in our hearts or on the others? Harmony is what appealed to you, Kalpana. Yes. What about for others? What was really significant for you? When the flow of conversation proceeds in conformity with reality, then we get the state of harmony. So we're trying to, this is the essence, isn't it? This is why AEIOU, the retaining of the meditative condition, is the secret to the whole thing. This is why Daji said, you know, it's going to bring forward all we're looking for in heartful communication. That meditative condition. No rise and fall in the speech. Well, you know, that's the one that people think, oh, that's a little bit odd. I mean, I'm aware that I'm speaking with rise and fall in my voice. I'm aware that I'm doing that. And I'm also wanting you to feel into, is it leaving any weight in your heart? So my own sense is it doesn't mean that we then speak, you know, just like that. But if you listen to Daji, he has that lovely modulated tone. And there is no weight left in the heart. The evil of anger and sharpness to be overcome. Yes. Oh my goodness. Doesn't he say anger is a poison to spirituality? To think of ourselves as polite and humble. I'm loving what you're all putting. It's like different things have caught the attention of different ones of you. It's like certain things appeal to us as being really significant, not necessarily the same aspect as somebody else. And yes, I struggle with the rise and fall. Personally, I allow my voice to rise and fall. I mean, that's part of, for me, my sense of wanting to express, you know, what is alive, what matters, and to connect with you. So my own sense of it is that providing it doesn't actually have sharpness in it, and that the place that it's coming from is a kind of steady place. This is my own, you know, this is my own perception of what that really means. I don't think it means necessarily all the time to speak like that. However, it makes an extraordinary difference if you're angry to discipline yourself to speak in that kind of a way. So my sense of that advice is that a lot of it is when you are upset and angry or irritated, and then we try to really keep level. But right at this moment, guess what? I'm not at all angry. I'm actually very, very happy to be with you. So yeah, to be aware of emotional outbursts. Lovely. So thank you for all those contributions. Now, what I want us to notice is that some of what you've put in here are to do with inner conditions, and some are to do with outer behavior. Now, here's this theme, if you like, of the inner condition and the outer behavior. So what we're going to just offer you now is like a kind of condensed version of Lalaji's principles for us to think about. So when we have the inner condition of humility and love, it manifests in the outer behavior of softness. of having no inclination to hurt, no words that will cause hurt. So there's the inner manifesting as the outer. And here's another inner condition: to be devoid of anger within ourselves. How it can manifest then is in a cool and calm disposition. And then we have the balanced condition of mind that somebody noticed there. Here's the another inner condition, manifesting in not there being no excited, emotional, short-tempered or moody reactions, no outbursts. Do you see what we're doing here? We're looking at the inner manifesting in the outer. And then when we feel in tune with the current of reality, in tune with the current of reality. It's such a profound concept, I think. I find myself having to say that really slowly. Tuning in through our meditation, through our practice in our hearts. And then our voice is more likely to emerge evenly without carrying this weight in the heart. So then the result of Lalaji's principles, this is what our aspiration can be. Now, most of us, and I totally include myself, are not there yet. Not at all. But we can aspire, can't we, to the visions that our masters hold up for us. We can aspire to this state of insignificance. And this is the emphasis that Daji puts on purifying our hearts. The more pure we can make our way of living, our thoughts, our lifestyle, the more we're going to be in line, in alignment with Source, with the divine. Isn't that right? This is what we're trying to do. And from that place, Lalaji says, only those words intended and right will be spoken. And we'll only do what ought to be done. It's quite a lofty ideal, isn't it? And then whatever is spoken goes on touching the hearts of others. So thank you for those slides. Yeah. And I'd just like to offer you one other thought from Lalaji that I think matters immensely when we're talking about implementing heartful communication, which is that it doesn't matter whether we start from the inner condition to try to nourish that and seeing how that manifests, or whether we start by trying to implement his principles of conversation. Do you see? It's like we can start from the inner and it will affect the outer. But we can also start by practicing something, even if it doesn't feel like it's us yet. Do you remember Charaji? Those of you who, many of you knew Charaji. Do you remember he used to say this phrase, and some of us were a bit shocked at the time. He used to say, fake it till you make it. Do you remember that? And we thought, oh, a spiritual master telling us to fake it till we make it. But it was, do you see, it's such a profound wisdom. It's saying, even though you haven't done it yet inside, practice something outside and it will affect you inside. Do you see? This is a magic, the magic of our masters. To realize that we can start from the inner to the outer, or we can practice something. It's like heartful communication. We're not there yet, but we practice it and then it becomes part of us. So we practice LPOC and it will affect our inner condition. Do you see what we're saying here? That so Lalaji says this because both approaches will result in us becoming more closely aligned with the divine way. That would be the outcome of it. Okay, so that's like a little kind of, I suppose a summary, you might say. And after we're going to look a little video now from Darji on AIU and LPOC, and then have a little break, and then we're going to practice with Lalaji's principles of conversation. So whoever's got the button on the video.
Principles of conversation. The style of speech will be devoid of rise and fall in pitch. On the contrary, it should be like the divine current, which has been flowing evenly since the beginning of creation. I had copied just that, and innumerable are its benefits beyond the possibility of narration. So Lalaji Maharaj is saying that he had copied the style, mimicking the flow, the vibrations that emerges from the source in a very evenly fashion. Any rise or fall whenever we communicate. You have seen how people at times it starts and suddenly they drop, and it can become quite hilarious at times. There is no joy. If there is joy, there is only negative kind of a joy. Something that arises out of at the cost of somebody else. But here, when we mimic that steady flow, how are we going to even understand the steady flow that emerges from the source? For him, it was easy to access and mimic that. How are we going to mimic that? So, we have to try to touch the bottommost level of our consciousness, the depth available to us at any given moment. For example, whenever we meditate and we notice that depth in meditation, we try to maintain that depth as much as possible. And through this inner depth, when we try to mimic that, when we try to adjust ourselves, maintaining that inner depth, the communication will also follow accordingly. Having a certain condition after meditation, this effort of holding on to that and trying to communicate after that helps us in enlivening that condition. And whenever a moment arises where you have a quiet moment, then you can give life to it by again drowning yourself in the remembrance of Master that will intensify that state. So, through this, mimicking our way with morning meditation state, we are able to achieve a lot. Not only acquire the condition that was there after meditation, but by recalling it again and again, we are able to enliven it and intensify it as well. Lalaji says, I had copied just that, and innumerable are its benefits beyond the possibility of narration. So best is to practice this. This is a philosophy that when the flow of conversation proceeds in conformity with reality, there develops a state of harmony between the two. Through that harmony, the divine way starts developing automatically. This results in effectiveness, as whatever is spoken goes on touching the hearts of others. In other words, a sort of relationship with the current of reality is established. When a relationship is created, effectiveness has to be there. If we copy it, only those words will flow during the conversation that are intended and are right. So, it is quite obvious that when we are touching the innermost plane of our consciousness, awareness, and we converse from that, then the flow will be just as it should be. The words that will come out will be appropriate. We won't have to make any efforts. There will not be any artificiality because you are now being really authentic by deepening your awareness, touching the depth, and then communicating with others. When this inner depth is conveyed through communication, also similar depth, if not the similar length, or if not the similar depth, but it will somehow echo in someone's heart and appeal to them what we are saying. So, the effectiveness.
Just take a moment, please, and just reflect and make a few notes for yourself, just a few of what really has been important for you in what Daji was sharing, or anything from what has emerged from this first part of the session today. Let's just take a small pause, and then we're going to have a break and then come back to do some practice. Whenever we have, Daji sharing his wisdom, it helps us, doesn't it, to just reflect for a moment and make notes of anything that really touched our hearts.
We'll start the second part of the session. In one of Daji's interaction, he mentioned that he would really love Lalaji's principle of conversation to become the mantra of how we communicate in the mission. And in several occasions, Daji has stressed how personally, when he started adopting Lalaji's principles of conversation in his life, how transformative it was personally for him. And he also mentioned that LPOC is the ultimate nonviolent communication. So in this section, we will try to practically experience speaking in Lalaji's principles of conversation, adapting to Lalaji's principles of conversation. What I'd like you to do right now is, in our day-to-day life, we are always faced by these triggers, some very challenging situation when it becomes very difficult for us to communicate in that even tone and as prescribed by Lalaji. So with this breakout exercise, we'd like to experience it, how we can sort of practically communicate in Lalaji's principles of conversation. So before we go into the breakout, I'd like you to write down maybe a situation that really triggered you, say for about a minute or so. Don't censor your thoughts. Just write it, narrate the situation, and let your thoughts flow, let your emotions flow. think of a situation that really triggered you and write down about it without censoring your thoughts and emotions. All right. So I'd like to give you a demo. This is a situation that happens with my son. And the first one, I'd like to just narrate as it is. So I really don't understand my son, you know. The other day in his online class, I was really triggered because I saw him fidgeting around, looking around, moving here and there, when he was supposed to be paying attention to his teacher. I was really annoyed with him. I really don't understand where his head is. He should be there in the class. He's loitering around. He should be paying attention in the class, and he's not there. He is absolutely not there. You know, he's absolutely has no sense of what is happening in his class, and really feel very triggered, and it's really upsetting me. So here, as you all have noticed, there was a lot of emotional charge from the trigger, and as I was narrating the incident. Now, what I'd like to do here is take a moment of pause and try to center myself, try to connect with the source, and try to speak in Lalaji's principles of conversation. Okay. So when I see my son tapping on the keyboard, looking outside the window while his teacher is explaining a task to him, I feel concern, and I'd love some understanding and also some direction to the situation. So did you notice something between demo 1 and demo 2? What differences did you notice? Yes, here there is observation in Demo 1, the feeling, the need, tone of voice. Okay, so I'm guessing the second demo, it was, I was much more calmer, softer, thinking with calmness in demo 2. Yes. Yes. Anything else? You were calmer, understanding. Interest in his experience. Seeking solution, perhaps seeking direction. You were not angry, so the emotions were not there. And when the emotions are not there, the weight in the heart is also not there. Okay, judgment, yes, there was a lot of alienating language. He should have done that, he should have done this, right? Gentle and vulnerable in the second. Yes, all right, wonderful. So we kind of get the sense of what we are to do in the breakout. So we'll quickly go through the slide 1 to sort of explain the exercise. So there is A will describe, first A will describe the incident to be with emotional charge, as I did in the first demo, and then take a pause to connect within and describe the same incident again to be using LPOC. So time is of an essence here. So be really, really careful and mindful about the time. So first, A will share with B how she or he felt. Then B gives a feedback on their experience of A's. I think there is a, okay, so A shares with B how she or he felt. And B gives a feedback on their experience of A's two different ways of expressing. And this, the entire exercise for one person will be done in 6 minutes. And then we swap. B will describe the incident to A and do the exercise all over again. Is the exercise clear to everybody? Thumbs up. Would love to see some thumbs up, or if there are any questions, you could raise your hand. All right, wonderful. Okay. So can we go into the breakout, Brother Shravana? So how was it? I know there were some technical issues. You may have had one person in your breakout room yourself, but I hope you utilize that time to practice it on your own and notice the difference. So let's start. How was it? Anybody would like to share? You could raise your hand and the host will try to unmute you.
Actually, we now allow everyone to unmute themselves and speak.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Hi, Sister Kanchan.
Yes. Hi. Hi, Patrick.
I own you. I still own the video. I know. I'm struggling. I'll be coming back next week to you.
Thank you.
So you want me to share?
Yes, please.
And basically was that the sister was concerned about her daughter who is overseas, and the key thing was that she felt that the daughter was not feeling well, she needed to be open to her. She felt that the separation. And then when she realized that, she felt good when she opened up, and then her need is to stay connected with the daughter. And the daughter is just, I don't want to worry. Her need is not to make her mother worry. So that was the sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So I think you all delved into the feelings and need. At the same time, that's lovely. As we were practicing Lalaji's principles of conversation, would love to know how it was when you did the exercise. One, when you were emotionally triggered, and then afterwards when you took a pause and you started the conversation again. So Karuna writes, coming from a neutral place to observe and connecting through needs and feelings eases the situation. Yes, absolutely. And so I'd like to ask you, when you are in connection, you are deeply in connection with your inner being, even what you speak perhaps becomes very, very neutral. The words that come out is also very neutral, and it's really very, it's that natural way of speaking. Anyone would like to share? First time thinking of own feelings, second time thinking of others. Wonderful. So there is this feeling of concern for the other person, not to cause any hurt. I'd love to hear some verbal responses as well. How was it? I mean,
I would like to share.
Yes.
I felt really so amazingly how in both the situation was the same, but in both the scenarios, once I was very emotional, concern was there for the other person, but my wordings were very wrong, where there was you should be driving safely, and all those points were there. In the second thing, I made my sentences on observation, what was happening and how I felt about it, and what needed to be done for the benefit of all. So it was beautiful to learn this, very beautiful.
Thank you, Sister Lata. So how did it feel from inside when you did the second time, when you centered yourself and you spoke?
When I think I was so calm, and when I was putting the same concerns, but in a different frame. And I think he would have surely listened to me in the second scenario.
Absolutely. Hurrah for that. Thank you, sister. So it really makes a difference when you're centered and you're talking. And as Daji mentioned in the video, that when you are in that center, connected with the source, the words that come out is going to be natural, and it will touch the heart of the other person that you're communicating with. First time not connected to self and could not or dare not express my fear and discomfort. The second time I tried to connect to myself and express my fear and needs, feelings to her. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm so happy. The fear went, the emotions went, and what was left was the natural way of expressing, truly connected with the inner being. Thank you so much for that sharing. Anyone else would like to share? But as a listener also, how was it to listen to both the ways of speaking? How did that feel? So would love to hear from some listeners' experience as well. How did they feel when they listened to both the ways of speaking? Yeah, Karuna?
When you listen, the first one, it's almost like it's triggering a reaction within myself. So I can feel that I'm ready to react and respond and defend myself. Whereas at the second round, I felt like that's inspiring to me to reflect and come to my own conclusion about the situation rather than a demand or, you know, something that has just been told to me that I need to do.
Wonderful. So the first one was a reactive one, and perhaps when you were centered, it was, you know, you were responding to the situation with perhaps empathy and compassion. Thank you, sister, for your beautiful sharing. First time reactive, second time empathic, trying to understand the feeling. Yeah, and I so very loved what Sister Karuna said. The, you know, first one, there was a lot of emotionally charged conversation with a weight in the heart. And in the second one, there was some kind of lightness there. So we continue this process. This is not the end. It is just the beginning. We keep observing ourselves, how we talk, and try to make an effort to be in that meditative condition. Be aware what helps us, what doesn't, and try to implement, make an effort to practice Lalaji's principles of conversation and see what magic it can create in our lives and in the lives of people around us. So again, once again, requesting you all to keep practicing and see what it will do. On that note, we come to the end of this section. And if there are any questions from Liz, we'd love you to unmute yourself and we'll start the Q&A with Liz.
Thank you very much, Kanchan. Yeah, I'm really happy that people are finding that this is, you know, making a difference. It takes some time, as you're saying, and we've got so much practice that we can do. So, Ramesh, how much time have we got for a little Q&A? We need to make sure that we've got 10 minutes at the end because we need to cover like next steps and resources and a little final video from Darji. So if we work backwards, knowing that that's going to be 10 minutes, how long have we got just now?
15 minutes, I think.
15?
Yeah.
Okay.
To this.
Okay, well, so somebody can just tell me to stop when the time is up, right? That's probably the easiest. All right. So who would like to ask what? So I see a hand. Sister Pooja. You have to unmute yourself, otherwise I don't know what your question is. There we go.
Yeah, actually, what I was observing that when we talk to adults, majority of the time, we are very good to them. I mean, most of the time. We listen to them nicely, we behave with them nicely. And if they don't do something, still we are patient. But when it comes to listen to and when it comes to children, we tell them once or twice nicely, but if they don't listen, then the third time we really lose our patience, and then we react, we scold also, and in spite of knowing we should not do it, we end up doing that. So I don't know why this difference with children and adults.
Okay, thank you for your question. Let me just find out if this is an experience for other people too. Could you raise a hand if you relate to what Sister Pooja is talking about, that you notice either for yourselves or around you, that people behave differently with children and lose their cool more quickly and so forth? Could you just I'm just going to whiz through the screens and see. Of course, there's a lot of people with their videos off, so I have no idea. Okay, so quite a lot of you. Thank you. So first of all, wouldn't you say, Sister Pooja, that most of us tend to parent in a similar way to the way we have been parented? And most of, I don't know about certainly most of the older generation, as it were, are likely to use what we would call a power over approach rather than a power with, even with children. Now, but what I've noticed happens that when parents are talking with their children, that they do not include the need that would be fulfilled by them asking the child to do what they're asking them to do. Therefore, it is experienced by the child as a demand, as an instruction, without them necessarily being able to feel into what the benefit would actually be for them or for the parent. Now, is this making sense? This inclusion of the need. So, for example, it's okay, bedtime, stop playing now. You know, it's bedtime. You know it's bedtime. It's 8 o'clock, and you know that the toys have got to be away at 8 o'clock. That's it. Child doesn't stop. I told you, right? 8 o'clock, the toys go away. It's time to get ready for bed. Repeated, 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 until everybody loses their cool. Familiar? Oh, it's painful, isn't it? Yeah. And do you see that if the need was included, if we can also speak with respect to children and include the need. So remember, you know, whatever the child's name is, that we have an agreement that at 8 o'clock, we're going to finish playing and we're going to get ready for bed, because now here's the bit that the parent rarely says, because I just love for you to have a peaceful, you know, getting ready for bed so we can enjoy our story and that you can have a lovely restful sleep so that we can play more in the morning. Something very simple like that. Now, I'm not saying it's a magic wand that always will work, but when we say, will it work? Usually people mean, will the kid do what I want them to? Usually that's the translation of it doesn't work or it does work. Would you agree? That's the translation of it doesn't. When people say to me, it doesn't work with my child, I say, what do you mean it doesn't work? They don't do it, is what they say. I said, ah. So we need to always look at our intention. Is my intention to have that child do exactly what I say? Or is my intention to connect with my need and the child's need? And the child's need. I'll just give you a very, very quick little example of something that we call the process called the third way, which is like an approach to any kind of conflict where you take into account both sets of needs. And this example includes a child, which is why I'm going to tell you. But it's a little story. A friend of mine was playing with a 5-year-old child in a park here in Scotland, in Edinburgh. The child wanted to continue to play. My friend was cold and tired and wanted to go home. Okay, you get the situation, right? Now there's a perfect setup for a battle, isn't it? No, I said I wanted to go home. I've had enough. I'm cold, I'm tired. You know, that's it. You've had a good play, time to go home. No, I don't want to go home. I want to play. Do you see? Now, what happened, and this is why it's such a beautiful story, is the child understood both her need and the adult's need. And she said, I know, let's go home. We'll put a blanket and a pillow on the grass, on the lawn for you. You can lie there, we can get a cup of tea, and I'll cover you up with a blanket and I will play around you. Isn't that lovely? It's so simple. Now, this is because that particular child has been reared by a parent who has studied nonviolent communication and knows the importance of expressing and valuing all needs. So this is kind of a long answer to your question, Sister Pooja, but I'm hoping it's throwing a little bit of light onto something which will take a lot of work, as it were, to undo our habits. And also because this is an introductory session that we're doing, you know, if you do the full program, you will come out of it with skills and insights of how to manage things with children in a completely different way. We are planning in the, you know, I hope as soon as possible to create a course specifically for parents, but with a massive demand that we have of offering this program. We haven't managed to do that yet. But the short answer to what you're asking is to really have respect for children and respect that behind everything they do and say and want are needs, the same as there are for adults. And the more that you can be with the child with the awareness of their needs and look for ways forward that embrace and take into account their needs also, the more you will shift from this mindset of instruction. They have to do what they, you know, what I say they're going to do. By the way, there's a lovely quote from Marshall Rosenberg when he says, let me see if I can get it right. In any process of conflict resolution, you have to completely abandon the goal of getting people to do what you want them to do.
Oh my God.
I love it. Shall I say it again, just because this is very uncomfortable for all of you? You won't like it. Ready? In any process of conflict resolution, child, adult, boss, you know, boyfriend, doesn't matter. You have to completely abandon the goal of getting people to do what you want them to do.
Then there will never be a conflict only if that happens.
The point is that we have this idea in our heads that they should do it. There's the should, right? That they should do it. In other words, I have not really understood the other person's needs. So in Heartful Communication, we say, take account of, listen for, value the other person's needs first and your own second. We do it the other way around mostly.
Yes.
And Marshall had a phrase for that. He used to say, empathize before you educate. In other words, before you tell somebody how it really is. That's what he means by educating somebody, right? Empathize. It's the same as Stephen Covey, right? With his fifth habit of highly effective people. Who's read that book? Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You know, that's a terribly famous book. It's in all the bookstores and all the airports, not that we go to airports anymore, but, and the fifth habit, does anybody know it? Ritika. The fifth habit of Stephen Covey.
Listen first to be understood. If I'm right?
No, it's the wrong way round. Okay, who can say it accurately? It's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? Yeah, go on. Do you want to sort that one out? Does anyone know? The fifth habit of highly effective people. Seek to
listen with intent rather than to reply, something like that.
I mean, that is something that the guidance that we shared yesterday. But the actual fifth habit, he says, seek to understand,
then to be understood.
Thank you. Okay, let's say that again. Seek to understand the other before you are understood. Do you get that? In other words, let me have the generosity of heart to receive the other person first, to try to understand their perspective first, to try to hear their needs first before I express mine. It's an extraordinary life principle. Anyway, so thank you for your question, which I hope I've given a bit more sort of food for thought in there for others too. Okay.
Sister Liz, we have a few questions, but I think we can only take another one question, as you need the 10 minutes, right, before we conclude. So there is this question. Daji says communication is actually an energy exchange, a tuning of vibration. Can you please give us more insight into this?
Yes, thank you. People tend to think of communication like a game of table tennis. Ping pong, you know, backwards and forwards. But if you think about it, whoever you are in conversation with, you are actually different with that person than you are with somebody else. Do you communicate in the same way with your boss as you do with your wife or husband? We've just had an example of how people communicate differently with a child than an adult. Do you communicate in the same way with an elder, with a grandmother, a grandfather, as you would with a teenager? In other words, I think the answer would be no, right? In other words, we are continually adjusting ourselves, as is the other person, to the vibrations and the energy of the person we are with. Would you agree? Yes. We don't do it consciously. We're not saying, oh, I'm going to now I'm going to tune into this person. We don't say that. And we do it instinctively. It's like we are continually vibrating. We're like little like sort of receiver stations. It's like we have antennae, you know. We're vibrating, and we adjust ourselves according to the situation, according to the person. In other words, everything is energy. So the way that I experience communication is more like, you know, the process of osmosis. But do you remember learning about that in school? How things flow together, almost, you know, or diffusion or something, I don't know. But it's like there's a flow which is all the time happening between two people, between a group, between several people. It's all the time happening. It's like an energy exchange. So something is moving, adjusting all the time. So that's my understanding of that, that it's not this thing of bong, 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 bong. You're not actually taking turns, as it were. You are tuning in and adjusting and flowing in the best possible communication, that is. Of course, if you're only, you know, giving an instruction, then that doesn't apply at all. You know, but for most conversations between adults, particularly I would say people who have a heart-centered meditation practice, where your hearts are continually being refined and tuned to the current of reality, then that process of adjustment, of energy adjustment, of the heart opening and feeling into the other person, sharing what is alive in you, receiving what is alive in the other. Do you see how completely different that is than something that's mechanical? It's a flow of life that is moving all the time between people in communication, when particularly we are in our hearts. All right, okay, so we are aware that you're probably thinking in your minds, all of you, what do we do next, right?
Yeah.
And so first of all, I think we'll share some resources, a slide where we've put some resources where you can do some more of your own study. So let's share this first. And I'll even some of this is a bit abbreviated, so I'll just talk about it for a moment. If you go online, you'll see there's something called the NVC Academy, nvctraining.com. Now they have a resource library, which is rather wonderful, with all kinds of articles and things that you can read. To join the full library, there's a fee, but there's a lot of free resources also. Now they offer, at any time of the year, you can join this, a free 30-day program. It's like an introduction to nonviolent communication. So you can sign up for that through their website, and you can just start. Now we've had a lot of Abhyasis who've done this course and have found it quite helpful. The difference that you need to be aware of is that it's nonviolent communication. It's not heartful communication. You know, this has been created by people who don't practice heartfulness, and it is still immensely helpful because we are weaving in, as you know, the principles of NVC into heartful communication. Now there's a more in-depth NVC training. Now this won't make much sense to you what's written here. It says Mickey course. Mickey Kashtan, could somebody, maybe Kanchan, could you write into the chat box her full name? Mickey Kashtan has an online course. It's called Making Life Work. So again, if you Google, she's not with the NVC Academy. She has her own website, which is called The Fearless Heart. The Fearless Heart. But even if you Googled Mickey Kashtan, Making Life Work, there's a, this is the program which I recommend to people if they want to do a more in-depth approach to learning about nonviolent communication. She's a very extraordinary NVC teacher, and she's written some terrific books. So that's online. The books that we recommend, we've already referred to Marshall Rosenberg's, it's like his classic book, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. And I would heartily recommend that you get this. The thing that you can do with this is what we call circles of connection. If you look at point 5, it says study programs. Let's say 3 or 4 of you in a center have got this book. Why not get together and work through a chapter each, every week, work through a chapter together, get together, discuss it, do the exercises in it that are suggested. And in this way, you can learn NVC. Accompanying that book is the NVC Companion Workbook by Lucy Liu. And so this kind of goes with Marshall's book. And this is full of exercises you can do. So again, we'd say, set yourselves up in small informal groups and start to get to know the practices. You can look at any videos of Marshall Rosenberg on YouTube, sharing NVC. He's really fascinating. Now, we also have developed a Heartful communication, not NVC, Heartful communication, online self-learning program, which is about 4 weeks. And Tejal, if you're there, Tejal, Robert, could you kindly mute, because I think we had some kind of noise coming on. Tejal, could you tell a little bit, or Kanchan, a little bit about that, just briefly, so people know if there's going to be an option to join that, the HC Online Self-Learning Program?
Yeah, so every month we start the program. It's a self-learning course on the portal. Although it's self-learning, we offer weekly Zoom session, 2 hours Zoom session. And in that Zoom session, we try to clarify a few concepts that you may have come across during that week of the program. And the program is again an amalgamation of nonviolent communication and heartfulness tools and approaches. And we have consciously made an effort to make it an experiential program, which means to say that we've divided the weeks in such a way that each week you are sort of given certain approaches, awareness, consciousness to practice with tools. And throughout the week, you consciously make an effort to practice that and then reflect over it. We have a lot of reflective questions, quizzes, so that we see to it that whatever concepts we have delivered, you're able to grasp it. And if there are any clarification, we take it on in the Zoom meeting. And usually it's a very high on-demand course, which means to say that the moment we spread the news, it just gets filled up very, very quickly. It just takes about 4 to 5 hours to fill in. And we've had amazing testimonies after the program, for people who have completed the program. It has really helped them to deepen their understanding, their awareness. So we sincerely recommend that if there is an opportunity to do sign in for the program. And for that, you'll have to check our website once a month. Usually it opens towards the first week of the month or end of the month. So you could just be aware of that, or we'll send it whenever you get an information, you can fill in.
Super. Thank you very much, Kanchan. I think that was very clear. And there's the website address on the slide. and I think it's also, is it in the web, in the chat? No, it's just on the web, on the slide. Okay, thank you. If we can take down that slide now. All right, well, we better finish, hadn't we? So we're going to end in a moment just with this little video of Darji. So may I take the opportunity now, because I won't speak after that, to thank you all very much for inviting us and for your engagement and participation and enthusiasm in working with us in these 2 sessions. And I'm grateful to you, Ramesh, for setting it up, and the others in your team who've made it possible. And of course, I'm immensely grateful to my dear sisters, Priya and Kanchan and Tejo, because we've got these other programs running, which they've had to leave in order to, to come here to be with you. But I think I speak for all of us when we say that we have enjoyed our time very much with you.
Sister, we would also like to say thank you so much to you, Sister Liz, and the HC team from India for a wonderful and enriching 2-day session for our better understanding of listening with love and speaking with love. Thank you for bringing us into this world of deep listening and moving beyond a judgmental mindset of being good or bad and playing the game of who is right. So with this, we wish Sister Liz and her team a hearty and grateful appreciation for spending these 2 lovely days with us in enlightening and motivating us to expose our loving nature. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see the video now. Yes.
I've been incessantly talking about unity. Unity really does not mean sameness or no differences. Unity means inclusiveness. Unity means working together with love. Unity means when we work together as members of the same family, may there be trust, may there be respect, may there be love. But unfortunately, even amongst the family members, father doesn't trust the son, son doesn't trust the father or mother or wife. It only shows how degradation has crept in our society at a large scale, this level. And this is all perhaps that all this being impatient, being intolerant, being judgmental, being prejudicial. And this is all because of the single most character, impatience. Meditation helps us slow down in this process of judging people. We weigh in our heart what I'm doing. Is it right or wrong? The problem with most people today, though they know the art of meditation, it has simply remained a ritual. Closing your eyes and trying to feel the presence of divinity. Some people imagine it's glowing inside and you're looking for the glow. These are all symbolical things. There is no real glow as such. There is only one glow, glow of love. If you can feel that, you have somehow understood the concept of meditation. Melting in love, allowing your heart to ooze in love. When such is the state after each meditation, where is the place for judging others?